Hi, I'm Captain Mike. What you think of my little buddies here? Pretty nice little foxes. And they're somewhat unique in that they're not supposed to be this way. They are the product of my trying to figure out what to do with pieces that I didn't have. Let me take you and show you what I'm talking about. These molds right here were given to me, and with a lot of molds, 2 pickup truck loads in fact. And a good many of those molds were missing secondary molds. And what I mean by that is these 2 molds go together in clamshell fashion and they make the body. But there's a piece missing right here. There's a leg, and on this one right here, the tail's missing and a forepaw's missing. Those are in a third mold, or a second mold, but a second clamshell mold that makes the auxiliary parts, or accessory parts, whatever you wish to call them. And here's what I mean. See, these guys come apart, or this guy and this gal, however you want to look at it. And what was missing on this little rascal was the leg right here, and part of his tail, which I think wrapped around and went into the leg. And with this lady, her tail was missing, okay? So I kept looking at them, and I like foxes. I really do. In fact, I like all animals. I like, rabbits and cats and all that. I have all those molds, and in some cases, parts are missing. So we have to do something about that. So I decided that I would glue these together while they were still greenware, before I fired them to bisque. This was some river clay, by the way. It was red. Wasn't I fortunate? You can see how nasty that stuff looks. Didn't even think I was going to get them out of the mold. But I did, and I attempted to smoosh them together with some slip in between. And then I piled some clear glaze over them after they were bisqued and down into the cracks. And I thought that was going to hold it, but my old fumble fungles me, I almost dropped them off the table here and they broke apart. So that's okay. That's okay. I'll fix them up later. But let me show you what we're dealing with here. These little rascals right out here. I cast 2 more, and I hope that I haven't let these get too hard. I may have, but I can still show you what I'm going to do. We'll try to put them together the same way I tried to put the original 2 together, and if they're not green enough, so to speak, that's fine. We'll make it work, okay? So here's what we have fresh out of the mold. I call this one the lady fox because she's lady. Now, I don't know why. It's just, hey, we do what we do, right? And this is the taller one, who seems to be somewhat protective. Gee, that's, I figure the male's job is. And in the animal world, a lot of times, it is. So what we have, as you see here, is things that don't fit. They just don't fit right like they're supposed to. They are just, you're going to have to trim some, okay? And then I have the front paw on this one. Let me get her up here where you can see her. Wrong way. Okay, there you go. The front paw is missing. So what we're going to do, as quickly as I can, is I'm going to trim this so that I can smoosh them together and they'll look like they're joined on purpose. I made a template for her leg, and we'll do it something like this, and I'll make it out of a flat piece of clay that I'll roll and I'll put over this, and then I'll kind of sculpt it, and then we'll clean it up and get it ready to bisque fire. If we're really, really, really lucky, it won't break apart, but it might, but that's okay. So let's get started with the trimming it all. We're going to need an assortment of tools. I'll start with a X-Acto knife and one of the spatula look things, and a smaller one. I'm going to need a brush. Always need a barbecue skewer, rolling pin, and some wax paper, and some clay that we can roll out. Now, and some slip, okay? That's just some gooey clay. Now, You may have another way to do this. As usual, I'm just showing you what I do. Everything I do is usually for the first time. This will be for the second. But we'll just kind of ease these things around a little bit and see what we can do about joining them together. Now, got these two here joined at the back side pretty good, and I'll fill all of this with slip in just a second. What I've got to do now is I've got to make a little front paw. So let's get started on that. Okay, now I've got the front paw about made. It's a little big. I'm going to squish it up so it'll be kind of the same size as this one. My clay is just a little bit more than leather hard, but I think I can make this work. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to join this front leg because I have two attach points and I know it's going to hold better. So, excuse me, let me try this. Go ahead and try this. So we'll retrieve our brush. And we have some slip. And the first thing we'll do is put lots of slip on this. Now I know I didn't take and serrate the edges with a little forky looking thing, and it helps to do that, but I didn't, okay? And it will work this way. You just have to make sure you're slopping lots of slip on there. Go ahead and, oh, forgot, didn't I? Oh, I tell you what, gang. What would you guys do if I did something right? It'd be terrible, wouldn't it? Okay. Got slip all over the table, all over my breeches. Let's just move this one, okay? All right, we're going for broke here, folks. We're going to stick that in there. We're going to kind of try to fix it around with our fingers. Now, a lot of this will come to right down to sculpting. So, you know, don't be afraid to sculpt all this stuff. It's only clay, okay? It's only clay. And it's not going to hurt anything. You can just put lots on there and smoosh it in and do whatever you think you need to do to get the little girl fixed up. And again, I'm calling this one a girl because it's my mold and I can do what I want to. So if anybody's offended, they'll just have to get over it, and we'll move on with what we got to do, okay? So all right. All that is joined pretty doggone good. I got a mess here. Let me see if I can clean it up. We don't want to be sliding clay and slip all over the place, and we don't want to do that because we're going to have to slide these around a little bit. And there will be some texture on this front leg when we're through, okay? I left my clay thick enough, I think, that I can work with it. We'll put a little clay, a little slip, a little whatever it takes to get that there. But it's not a bad looking front leg. I think it'll do. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to join these, okay? And let's see how much trouble that's going to be. This is going to only be 1 point, but I've got a pretty good seam back here. Now, to the astute observer, there's no leg right in here. Okay, I'm not going to, because this will probably end up being yard art for myself or a friend. I might go out there and one of these will probably go out there in my little walkway of shame or walkway of discarded, whatever, not perfect pottery. You know how that goes. I'm sure we all have one of those. Now, so if I wanted to though, I could just make our little round cylinder, join it in there, boom. Might even do that later, but we're going to fool with that because I want to keep this video kind of short. Just to show you what you can do with all of these molds that a lot of people just give away. And while I'm doing this, I'll explain to you. You can get on Craigslist and find a lot of people who have old molds that they've had, their grandmother had, their mother had, from back in the 50s, 70s, and 80s, when doing this kind of stuff was a real big fad. People just fired up all this bisque, and very few people actually did any glazing. They would paint this stuff with acrylics. So those of you who are getting started in this, just keep that in mind. If you don't want to glaze all this stuff, make your mold, fire it to bisque. It'd be really white. In this case, it'd be really white. If you use terracotta clay or river clay, it's going to be a different color. And then you can paint it with acrylics. You can spray it and then touch it up, whatever you'd like to do. So that's just a thought for those of you who are watching this and saying, I don't want to go to all this trouble. So I got this done and I sketched them all together. And the greener this is, the better. If it's leather hard, it's better. What I'm going to do in this case is just slop on a whole lot of slip and let it dry, and then I will come back and try to fill in some of this with some clay, maybe where it's missing. I'll go ahead and cover these back up with the plastic bag. Plastic bag, if you wonder why I had those on there, just retards the drying out of your clay pieces. So if you've got stuff you're fooling with, you don't have all the pieces ready at one time, just put them in a plastic bag and leave them, and they'll dry very slowly, and you can usually have a few days to a week. I think these have been sitting for over a week. It's too long. Just hadn't been in the mood to make a video. Weather's been on and off, and Thanksgiving and all that good stuff. So I didn't get to them. But this is what we have, as you can see. We got my two foxes already back together. The slip is drying on them, and as you work on them, you can add more slip, scrape some off. Don't be afraid to go with the clay and the slip. It comes off. At this point, it's all water soluble. And then these are ready to take off the mold marks right here. You can see the mold marks. They're ready to come off. So at this particular point, if you wanted to, you could start using any implement of your choice to take the mold marks off. Now, a lot of these, like cats and foxes and dogs and rabbits, especially the rabbits and the dogs and the cats, have a lot of hairline texture. So you have to be kind of careful how you do it. You may have to come back in here with a little fine tool and blend it. You know how to do that. You guys are better at that than me. So that's what we have. We have our little foxes. In this case, I have a set of rabbits the same way. I have a cat the same way. And I have to come up with something to do, something to lean the cat up against. If it's sitting up and it doesn't have a front leg, you got to figure out how you're going to do it. So it's a little bit different than just slip casting and mindlessly going about your business, which is okay. It's okay. It's just that if you really like to experiment, if you really like to not throw things away, because that's all these are good for, is if you're not going to do this, they're not worth casting anything for, because it's going to be obvious they're missing parts. So mold the parts or try to find the missing molds, which I had. These are so old, can't find the missing parts. So there you have it, folks. You got to admit, these are pretty good looking little rascals right here. And they'll make a great addition. If I don't break them, they'll make a great addition to my walkway from shop to my house. So that's all we're going to do on these. I'm going to cover them back up. I'm going to let them sit until the slip sets a little bit. Then I'm going to tinker with them some more. Okay, I'm back real quick. And I know some of y'all did think for 1 minute that I wasn't going to put that leg right there on, but I did. So it's not perfect, but it gives it an extra point for the slip to sit to. The more points you have, the more solid it's going to be. So I got that done. I got it all cleaned up. I got little hairlines fixed using this little tool right here that I made. You can also buy them. It's a little fine, but I scraped it down their backs and around them, and then I took my fingers and kind of rubbed it and smoothed it on down, and I've got them together. So all I'm going to do now is give them a while to glue, bisque them and then glaze them, and they'll look sort of like this. So that's my video on kind of what to do with incomplete molds, and just thought you might enjoy it. So y'all have a Merry Christmas, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up and like my channel. And with that, it's going to be my video. We're going to cover these things up and let them sit.